Today's topic, we'll be taking a look at the Elite from the Lost Stories. Today, after 6 long years, I've gone back to the Elite. I've considered it to be one of the best Big Finish stories and releases of all time. That was 6 years ago, and my opinion is still the same. I do believe it's one of the best Big Finishes of all time, one of the best Dalek stories of all time, and probably the best Fifth Doctor story of all time for me. That's a big statement. And to say that this is one of my favourite one of my favourite Doctor Who stories of all time, because it is, that's saying something. I decided to re-review the Elite, because again, it's been 6 years since I last experienced it. It's my third listen of it. And I think after the draft releases, which were like, they're not really my thing, I wanted to review something extremely positive. The Elite. It's a bleak, war-style story with the Fifth Doctor, a formula which works so well. And I would love if more stories had that feeling. There isn't a lot. You have the Elite, you have the Peterloo Massacre that offer that formula. The Fifth Doctor in just bleak gravitas settings, for some reason, over other incarnations of the Doctor, I just freaking love. I don't know why. Because I say to myself, I don't really like the Fifth Doctor all that much, but when he's in bleak gravitas settings, I go, my god, I think this story is freaking amazing. Because when you think of the Fifth Doctor, you think of a kind, morally good, warm incarnation of the Doctor. That's what you think of the Fifth Doctor. And then when he's in these situations, you just see this side of him of being utterly repulsed and disgusted of what's around him. Young people are being subjugated into a fascistic, military-centered program, with turning young people into soldiers, with no understanding of fun, entertainment, and luxury, but victims who are bred to serve the glory of the Elite. Young people are coerced and manipulated into ignorance on what is good and what is evil. Their minds taken over by the Elite. It makes them believe that killing, bloodshed, their committing of atrocities is morally and justifiably good. The Elite is a growing plague that was spread by a single Dalek that's been on a worn-torn planet for near 10 years. So it was a story that replaced Resurrection of the Daleks. A dark Dalek story. I think this one is one step above it when it comes to dark, because people die in Resurrection. I just think this story is just far more bleaker, and it just resonates, because I do love bleak stories. To me, I'm such a cynical pessimist, aren't I? But yeah, I just love them. I just love how they're written when they're good, obviously. Yeah, I think it's, even though it's been several years, I can confidently say this is miles better than Resurrection. But I understand why they picked Resurrection over the Elite. Resurrection is a more straightforward, to the point, action-oriented Dalek story. The Elite isn't. It's a unconventional and more original story idea by Barbara Clegg, who is ambitious with her scripts. She was very ambitious, in fact. I'm surprised Enlightenment even made it. Of course, it took heavy CGI later on. But I understand why Barbara Clegg's scripts didn't make it. She was a very good writer, but she wasn't budget friendly at all. The initial concept of it and how the Dalek was to be used, one of the most unique Dalek stories, which is what I would say the modern series needs. It's unique how the Dalek and its influence spreads around an entire planet, corrupting young people and turning them into a war-hungry civilization who have no understanding of what's morally good or evil. They just believe what they are doing is for good, and how this one Dalek is in such a position of power but kept under lock and key, creates such influence and disguise itself as a high priest in the Cathedral of Power, where Thane and the Acolytes worship it like a god. It feels like this could be a really good modern era story. Just some of the themes of it I think could work really well. And on top of that, with the bleak and hopelessness of the story, the music just aiding that feeling. TARDIS team are organised very well, all performing parts of the story which are integral to the plot. And as I mentioned, the planet has no understanding of entertainment, fun, luxury, or anything that boosts serotonin. It damages discipline and conformity, which then damages obedience to the system. And that's what the Doctor attempts to do, to deprogram the young people by giving them chocolate, which they are so controlled by the system. They are completely obedient, which then that obedience creates discipline. The discipline creates conformity, and then the conformity creates strength. Sounds very Dalek, doesn't it? And when the Fifth Doctor is spotted feeding chocolate, Stemp, one of the supporting characters, all the supporting characters go above and beyond fantastic, goes completely irate and acts in a very hostile manner. And that's what the Elite achieves very well. I'm just going to try and explain it. If you look on it at the surface level, it looks good. And then when you look at the underlying themes of it, it's truly evil and oppressive. Let me explain. So 10 and the 11-year-olds are exceeding in problem solving, analytical skills, algorithmic thinking, problem solving, forming tactics, reaction timing, and intelligence. 10 and 11-year-olds exceeding. That sounds good, right? They're very intellectual, smart. Now let's get into the evil side of it. They are mentally beaten into performing this, and it's the only thing they understand, which is serving the evil collective goal of the Elite. Even though they are very intelligent, these 10 and 11-year-old young people, they can't exercise that intelligence that exceeds outside of the influence of the Elite. They don't have the capacity to comprehend that because they are born into the system to serve the Elite. So they're not even aware or can comprehend that they are enslaved by a totalitarian system, programmed puppets for the Elite. That's truly dark. It goes even more steps further. If they don't pass the intelligence tests, but they are physically capable as soldiers, they just get sent to the factories and be slaves working in physical labor for the rest of their lives. If they are not intellectually capable, this is horrible stuff I'm explaining here, or they're not physically capable, they're disposed of. And I've only said young people too. What do you think happens to the old? That's a no-brainer. And all these characters are all vile in their own ways, say it's for the greater good, it's for the strength of the people, the strength of the society. All lines you just hear under fascism. Sacrifice is needed for the greater good. All this greater good nonsense that you hear actually happens in the real world. What they do with all the supporting characters and the TARDIS team, the Fifth Doctor attempts to deprogram the system. It's very difficult for the Fifth Doctor to actually break the system, the Elite, because it's so ingrained into people's minds that he simply can't achieve it. Nyssa becomes a victim of the Elite system. And Tegan, now I think it's brilliant what they do with Tegan. They believe that Tegan isn't intellectually capable, so they send her to the factories. Now this is the bit which I think is brilliant. They don't send her away to the factories because she's intellectually stupid or anything like that, which that's what they would class her to be. It's because of her disagreeable personality. That is something which you can't control or enforce obedience. I think that is brilliant because disagreeable people are more difficult to control. But yeah, Nyssa becomes a slave to the system. Maybe because it's more of a agreeable nature as a character. She's more soft-spoken, while Tegan is more disagreeable and stubborn. Yeah, Tegan can be annoying in this story and disagreeable, but this story utilizes her disagreeable personality into something very clever into the story. It's brilliant. But yeah, how the Fifth Doctor opposes the totalitarian system of the elite, where General Orban says, "You dare?" And then the Fifth Doctor immediately strikes back and says, "Yes, I do dare." I love it. He immediately, without hesitation, just goes right forward with his disgust of the system and the oppression and the marginalization of all the young people who aren't even aware and can comprehend it. And then we go on to Thane, who is this religious zealot who has very close ties to the Grand Priest Dalek. I give my hat off to Ryan Sampson. He goes above and beyond in the role. It sounds like he really enjoyed it. He sounds like a complete nut job in this story, and he is a nut job. He's written like a complete crazy buffoon in this story. God, he really performs the role well, and I can tell he enjoyed it. I give my hats off to him. He really performed the role well. It's like, this guy's a nut job. Even the High Priest Dalek is like, God, can you like settle down a minute? He gets a little bit nervous of him, that he's just an unpredictable freak. Yeah, the High Priest Dalek, I love his dialogue. He's like, "Refer to me as God," and stuff like that. It's just, the dialogue with the High Priest Dalek is just so unique. Like, Power of the Daleks has its own kind of dialogue and thing going on. The Elite is like its own style of Dalek, almost. The way it speaks and like this religious terminology and jargon it spouts is just so unique. And how it developed a character to win favour of the colony and just the society is just so genius. I love it. Absolutely love it. And the directions Part 4 takes, it's still to this day, it's just so interesting, the directions it takes in Part 4. And it does involve the High Priest and something that happens, but I really don't want to mention it because it is such a good twist of like a moment that happens and you just don't expect it to happen that way. It just, to this day, just goes, God, this is just one of the best stories ever. This is what makes me think when talking about this flipping good story. God, so good, man. It's got some fantastic themes of totalitarian systems and oppression and marginalization of the individual. It's just this is a magnificent story, and I would say this would work so well as a modern era story because of its political themes and whatnot, because it's not only political, it's a damn good political story. And they tried to do that with the new series, but a lot of people went forward and said, I've only watched 5 stories of Jodie Whittaker, so it's not my place to even discuss it. But some people said the weakest thing about Jodie Whittaker's era was, in fact, the writing. I give this a 10 out of 10. I give it a freaking million out of 10. It is one of my favourite Doctor Who stories of all time. Yes, it's up there with the best Dalek stories: Evil the Daleks, Power of the Dalek, Dalek Master Plan, Genesis of the Daleks, the original Robert Sherman Dalek episode. It's up there, man. It's just up there. It's like Power of the Daleks level. I just love this story so much. I would say, yeah, looking at my Big Finish collection right now, I'm struggling to think of any Big Finishes actually better than this release. I'm struggling to think, to be honest. Would this work as a TV story? I don't think so. I think it's just too grand of a story to achieve. Barbara Clegg, you are one fantastic writer with so many good ideas. You're just not budget friendly. It works so damn well as an audio. TV, would it be a classic? I don't know. I really don't know. Barbara Clegg is too ambitious of a writer, and it struggled to translate into the TV format. That doesn't mean that she isn't a bad writer, it's just couldn't be done with budget. But that's all that needs to be said with The Elite, one of the best Doctor Who stories of all time. My favourite Fifth Doctor story of all time. That's even more than like the TV episodes of the Fifth Doctor. One of the best Dalek stories as well. It's like it can like be close to Power of the Daleks. It's not better than Power of the Daleks, but it's up there if you know what I mean. Highly recommended for me. Worth a listen, 100%. Will you like it on the level that I do? Maybe, maybe not. Because a lot of people do like the Elite. Some people say it's overrated, like any popular Big Finish or Doctor Who story, that people just have those opinions. Do I like it more than most? Yes, I think I rate it higher than most people do. But yep, it's just one of my favourites ever.